Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast, and today I want to have a little fun with you all. So I'm going to have a quick straw poll. I want everybody listening, wherever you are in the world, to stand up. Now, if you don't have two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication on your email or social accounts, I want you to sit down. Looks like I lost a few of you there, didn't it? Now, for everyone else that's still standing, I want you to sit down if you have the same password on multiple accounts, websites, or apps. Whoa, I'm losing you all pretty quickly, right? Now, final question. If you don't have a password manager, sit down. Now, for everybody that is still standing, I want you to send me an email now, techblogwriter@outlook.com, or send a tweet or message on LinkedIn, just say, Neil, I'm still standing. But I suspect I won't get any emails or any messages. But why? And that is a question I want to explore today. And I've invited Michael Crandell from Bitwarden onto the podcast because they're one of the password managers that still have a free option. So hopefully at the end of the conversation today, some of you will be a little less vulnerable than you are right now. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Santa Barbara, where Michael is waiting to speak with us today. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Michael. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Well, thanks for having me, Neil. I'm CEO of Bitwarden. We're the leading open source password managers for individuals and businesses. We have a mission of helping protect sensitive information for people. So I like to say we envision a world where no one gets hacked.
Oh man, that sounds like the place that I would love to live. And I'd love to take you back in time for a moment, Harry. Can you remember where your passion for tech came from, or just a moment that put you on this path today, and how the worlds of technology and security would collide for you? Or ultimately, if we go to those Hollywood movies, what's your origin story?
Well, there have really been three pivotal moments for me around technology. They were all experiences with businesses I was involved with. The first one was called eFax. It's a product and a service that still exists. It was in the late 90s, just as the internet was exploding. It's basically a service that can give everyone who has an email address a free fax number. Now, fax is a little quaint by now in 2022, but at the time, many people used it, and they still do, by the way, now. And it was revolutionary in the sense of breaking down the barriers and just making it so easy for anyone to use a fax number. The second experience was a company called RightScale that I helped co-found, and it was really a very early player in management of cloud computing. So it was around the dawn of Amazon Web Services. And really what that was all about was helping to democratize access to compute resources. So instead of having to lay down a whole lot of money to buy servers and establish a data center and everything, you could rent one for 10 cents an hour.
Wow.
And that opened access. And of course, the rest is history about how powerful cloud computing has been as a major disruptor in technology. And really, the third is now Bitwarden, which basically, as I look at it, lets people do business faster, safely. By making the login process, we all go through dozens and hundreds of times, week after week, seamless and secure.
And I'm conscious we will have a few people listening that are hearing about Bitwarden for the very first time. So is that a story behind the company and the problems that you set out to solve with technology right from the outset?
Yes. The problem is so simple when you stop and think about it. We all have to log in, as I pointed out, dozens of websites every week. Some people have hundreds that they access over a year. And that normally requires, as we all know, a user ID, often your email address, and a password. That's the standard. To be secure, each login should use a unique and strong password, so that even if that website, for example, should be breached, your exposure stops there because all they got was that one unique password, and that password's not used anywhere else. It also needs to be a strong password. And our research shows that the sweet spot for strong passwords is about 14 characters long. So you can see where the problem arises with dozens, even hundreds of these websites we all access. It's practically impossible to create and remember strong, unique passwords for each one. So we all revert to simpler practices as human beings, like using our pet's name, reusing the same password at many sites, writing them down on a Post-it note next to your laptop, et cetera, et cetera. And this leaves us vulnerable to having our accounts breached or hacked by bad actors. And so that's where Bitwarden comes in. We help create strong, unique passwords that the system remembers, that Bitwarden remembers for you, and can autofill them when you visit a website. So you kind of achieve the holy grail of security software, which is being both more secure and easier and faster to use.
And it's such an important topic. I think the number one error that most people make is have one password, or one password with maybe a different number for multiple sites. And a lot of people don't realize that if one of those websites gets hacked, then that puts all sites, makes them vulnerable, because, hey, if your Netflix password gets hacked and it's out there, the hacker knows it's probably going to be the same password for PayPal, Amazon, eBay, and all the usual suspects, right?
Sure. And, we should all be aware many sites have already been hacked.
Yeah.
All this information harvested, and it sits out there on what's called the dark web. Numerous sites that bad actors can go pull down this information from. So it's already out there and available, which makes it even more important to do this. To put it positively, I had an aha moment after I had moved to Bitwarden and then got notice that one of the websites and services that I subscribed to had been breached.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my gosh. And it was a moment of fear. And then I went and checked and realized, luckily, I had created a unique password for it. This was many years ago. And there was this sense of relief. I could change that one password and make that website safe. And I didn't have to do anything else because it was unique to that website.
And I think it seems that we've been talking about going passwordless for many years. I mean, I've done 2,100 interviews on this podcast. I remember one of the very first ones was the guys that were removing passwords at, I can't think of the name now. But that was many, many years ago. We're still here now. I recently had to help a friend transfer their details from one phone to the other. And of course, when it got to the next stage, I said, what is your password? And to which they said, I don't know. Apple knows my password. I don't know it myself. Yeah. My fingerprint, my face knows the password, but I don't actually know it. So I'm curious, how have you seen the password evolve over the years? And what is the role of the password in today's digital sphere, would you say?
It's an excellent question. First, yes, the passwordless movement does go back more than a decade now.
Yeah.
This has been recognized as an important movement for a long time. And make no mistake, it's a very important development that we already support in Bitwarden, and we plan to continue to invest in that. But just look at our own behavior over the last 7 days. How many times did you have to log in the traditional way using a password? That's just not going to change overnight. So the reality is that passwords will be with us for the foreseeable future, even as passwordless technologies continue to evolve and become more prevalent and important. So we all need a solution that supports both. That's how we look at it. At Bitwarden, we try to stay focused on providing a secure, easy way to lets you log in and authenticate your identity in whatever way works best in that particular website and situation. And we believe for the next decade at least, we'll all be in a hybrid world where we all need to protect ourselves for both password-based and passwordless applications and websites.
And can you expand on the significance of all those other methods as well? And by that, I mean biometrics, MFA, and so many other different alternative security methods that are beginning to appear now.
They're all very important, Neil. And what I'd like to note is they can be combined in different ways to increase security. So you can use Bitwarden, for example, to store not only a standard password, but a so-called TOTP code, which stands for time-based one-time passcode. It's often these things that rotate every 30 seconds or 1 minute, 6 digits of numbers. And you can use that as a second factor being a multi-factor authentication, or MFA. You can also configure Bitwarden to use biometrics on your Android or iPhone to unlock Bitwarden and then authenticate you into a traditional password-based website. So these are all interesting ways of combining layers of different alternative security methods, as you mentioned. And a simple rule is that when you have more than one access method, second or multi-factor authentication, it greatly reduces your chance of being exposed for unauthorized access, because even if a bad actor got your password, they would then have to have your phone or your TOTP code to successfully get unauthorized access to your properties.
And I think over the last, 2 to 3 years, the world has changed so much. And we have seen an increased reliance on cloud services as people were forced to work from home almost overnight. And now we're out the other side of that. We're now going to hybrid working, and an expectation to work from any location, on any device, at any time, and on any network. So how do these trends impact remote work with that increased reliance on cloud services? And what do you think this collectively means for businesses?
Well, remote work is near and dear to our hearts at Bitwarden because we are a 100% distributed company. We're a 100% remote company. And look, it's been a boon to many businesses and people. We ourselves have been able to leverage hiring people all over the world because we support remote work as our style. So we have, I guess we're spread across half of the United States, about 20 countries and 6 continents now, team members at Bitwarden. But the boon has come with an acceleration of the use of cloud services by workers, and that's often super challenging for central IT to control, or even for any of us as individuals to manage. So there is a simple fix here. It's called Use a Password Manager. Regardless of any other tools you're using, there's every reason to use one and simply no reason not to, especially when it's 100% free. And I didn't mention yet, but Bitwarden is the last major password manager offering that has not crippled or removed the free offering. So that's a very important commitment of ours out there in the world to everyone. And we still have 100% free, full-featured version.
I didn't realise that. I've learned something there. And well, my next question was going to be, with social engineering hacks getting smarter, can you advise any actionable ways for listeners to prevent these attacks and be more proactive than reactive with their password security? But I think I already know the answer to that. It's get a password manager, right?
It is. And some other points too. In a nod to one of your famous authors in England, my advice here would echo what Mad-Eye Moody said in the Harry Potter series, which was constant vigilance, right? Yeah. We all need to be constantly on guard for these social engineering hacks. And that requires training and practice. So we do this internally at Bitwarden also. Training helps people recognize urgent messages. Often these social engineering things have an aspect of urgency that creates anxiety. Here in the US, we get messages that the IRS is about to sue us unless we call back today to this number, etc. Bad spelling and grammar is a flag. Unusual or atypical messages from a coworker. People need to recognize these, pause, and check things out before they act. Often, I think it's helpful to run staged or internally false phishing attacks, simulations, if you will, inside your business, to help people get used to recognizing what's out of the ordinary, and they should, pause and go check it out with IT before they respond.
And apologies here, because I'm going to mention one of your competitors, but LastPass famously suffered a breach last year. So what would you say to people listening who are concerned about what happens when the password management solution gets hacked?
Yes, we heard about that breach. As you might imagine, many people came looking at the Bitwarden solution. So, I can't comment on our competitors' closed sources approaches, but Bitwarden is open source. And so I can reassure you, Neil, and your listeners that we follow what's called a zero knowledge approach. And that uses strict end-to-end encryption of sensitive user information. What that means is that Bitwarden as a company can never see your passwords, even if we tried. Everything that a user stores is encrypted locally on their computer using state-of-the-art encryption algorithms. So even if we were breached, the only thing anyone could get is an unrecognizable encrypted blob of data. And because we're open source, our approach has been vetted by a global community of software developers and security researchers. So with Bitwarden, nobody needs to wonder how we're handling their sensitive data. We lay that out for the world to see as an open source company.
And I suspect we will have people listening around the world that maybe have put off the need of a password manager and thinking, well, it's too much hassle, it's easier to just do things a certain way. But equally, we've just made them aware that all those passwords, all those websites with the same password is leaving them quite vulnerable. So if someone was listening and just wanted to check out Bitwarden and get the most out of it, can you just walk me through how to get up and running and what they can expect and how any friction points they're likely to encounter or how easy it is to use? What can they expect?
Well, there's sort of two pathways. They all start at bitwarden.com, and right there on the homepage, it gives you a button to click to get started, and it will allow you to download Bitwarden clients. First of all, you sign up for an account, and you can get a free account. You can also leverage a free account for two users, for example, yourself and a partner or family member. Is also free. And then there are paid accounts you can read about on the website. But once you get started, what the system will allow you to do is to download Bitwarden clients for the particular environments that you use. So if you use Windows, there's a Windows desktop client or Macintosh or Linux. Depending on what web browser you use, if it's Chrome, if it's Safari, if it's Firefox, there are web extensions you can download. And then there are one or two paths. If you're a brand new user to password management, every time you log into a website, if Bitwarden has not recognized you doing that before, it'll offer to save the username and password that you just entered automatically. And thereafter, it will remember it for you. And if you want to change it, Bitwarden has a password generator that lets you create these very strong, secure passwords that are unique. If you are using another solution today, maybe a browser or Apple Keychain or a competitive solution, you can just export the passwords that you have there and import them to Bitwarden. There are extensive instructions on the website. It takes a couple of steps, and then you've moved everything over. I think when I first moved to Bitwarden from the competitor, it took me about 10 or 15 minutes to get moved across on my Macintosh, my iPad, and my iPhone all together.
Wow. And apologies, but I am cursed with a curious mind, and I've got to ask, what is the difference between that free account and the paid version? What do people get extra with the paid version?
With the paid version, you get extra storage. If you want to, you can, in addition to passwords, you can store other sensitive data, including files. You get some additional support for multi-factor authentication techniques, and you get expanded use of a capability we have called Bitwarden Send, which is built into the password manager. Bitwarden Send allows you to send on the free version a piece of text very securely from one party to the other with an expiration date. And with the paid version, you're allowed to send files in addition. So what would the use case be? Let's say you're preparing your taxes and communicating with your accountant and sending back and forth really sensitive information, financial information. You can use Bitwarden send that to your accountant, password the package, if you will, and be reassured that after a certain amount of time that you specify, that package will self-destruct, as it were. It'll disappear. So that's important because you don't leave around sensitive data that's sitting in your email sent folder or in whoever got its inbox or deleted folder. That's another area of exposure, is things that sit around for a long time. Important sensitive information in the basement, if you will, that we all forget about. But if anyone ever got access to your system, they could then go find it.
And do you only serve home users, or do you have any small businesses, startups, or do they usually have their own different kind of solutions?
We serve from home users and individuals up through large enterprises. So if you look on our website, Neil, you'll see personal plans and business plans. And actually, the vast majority of our revenue comes from businesses. So even though we have a free version and serve consumers, we see it as all one virtuous circle. And here's how that works. Individuals use the product. If they like it, they tell others about it. We never treat the individual as the product and advertise to them or sell their information. We don't have really any information on them. And so that's a word of mouth kind of engine for us. And then businesses hear about it. People bring Bitwarden to work, if you will, and then use it there. So our teams and enterprise editions have lots more features for sharing passwords, for IT teams to manage how they roll out the product to users, integrations with other software that larger companies use, like single sign-on or audit programs, things like that. And especially a focus around sharing, because as you get into businesses, a big part of what people do is share their credentials to sensitive information sites. A marketing team might share information on how to log in to a site that was tracking how their marketing was performing, that kind of thing.
And I suspect I'm going to go out on a limb here and say everybody listening everywhere in the world is going to have the same experience, and they're going to wish that they better manage their passwords. And even if they've got a product, a password manager, I suspect if you were to take a look in there, there's going to be many sites that have got the same password that they need to adjust. But there is hope, and you've talked through very simply today how people can better manage and protect themselves from these vulnerabilities. But I'm curious, what is it that makes you hopeful about the future, and how do you see password management evolving? Are you seeing changes in attitudes now?
We are. It's a good time for password management and for its expansion. I'm an optimist and I'm a hopeful person by nature. I love working with everyone at Bitwarden every day. I love listening to the feedback and suggestions we get from millions of users in our community. The product's been translated into nearly 50 languages, Neil, and we hear the feedback from people all over the world every day. And to be direct about it, there's a lot of Bitwarden love out there, and it's contagious. So in the end, I think it stems from the fact, my optimism, that our goal is simple. We're trying to help people work more easily and safely in the digital world. And that starts with providing a solution that anyone can use that's 100% free. So as I mentioned, there's no hook where the user is the product. Rather, people try our product, they like it, they talk about it, and they bring it to work. So we plan to stay focused on making everyone's sign-in process easier, faster, and more secure, whether password-based or passwordless. And that, in turn, allows everybody to do work faster and more safely. And eventually, as I mentioned at the beginning, to work toward a world where no one gets hacked. And you know what? That's a great reason to get up in the morning. And it's why working at Bitwarden makes me really hopeful for the future.
Love that. And we started the podcast talking about your origin story, what put you on this path. And you've also given us a lot of your time today to share your insights. I'm going to ask you to leave us with one other gift, and that is a song or piece of music that has inspired you that we can add to our Spotify playlist, or a book that you can recommend for our Amazon wish list. All I'm going to ask is, what are you going to leave us with today and why?
Neil, I love that question. That is a fantastic question. And I'm going to go with the song.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And the song that I'm going to share today is an oldie. It's called On the Sunny Side of the Street. I don't know if you're familiar with it,
yes.
But written in 1930. Why I'm choosing it, it's really the power of having a positive attitude. As the lyric says, just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. So many great artists have covered it. Oh my gosh, Frank Sinatra, Herb Alpert, Ella Fitzgerald, Nat King Cole, Manhattan Transfer, Rod Stewart, Willie Nelson, wow. Stevie Wonder. It's amazing. That's just a small selection. My favorite version is Satchmo's, Louis Armstrong. And the other reason I'm picking that song is my wife's name is Sunny.
Oh, man. Smooth as well. That's officially an oldie but a goodie. So I'll be proudly adding that to the Spotify playlist. And before I let you go, for anyone just wanting to find out more information about Bitwarden, or maybe they want to contact your team, check out a few videos, whatever it might be, what's the best starting point for everything?
It's we've put a lot of work into bitwarden.com. Just go to the website. If you happen to be a programmer or a developer, and very technical, you can also go to github.com/Bitwarden. That's where the open source project lives. But great starting point, bitwarden.com.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for sharing Bitwarden's origin story and your own origin story, and also how social engineering hacks are getting smarter, but providing actionable ways to prevent these attacks. And there's so much more that we could cover as well, outside of biometrics and MFA. Things like IoT, smart devices, and all these other things that have got passwords in our life too. So it'd be great to get you back on next year and maybe expand on this conversation. But more than anything, thanks for sharing your story with me today.
Well, Neil, thanks for having Bitwarden on, and take the rest of the week off.
What an incredibly cool guy Michael is there, and someone I could just chat and have a beer with and talk about life, the universe, music and everything. But I'm curious, has today's conversation changed your mind? Will you at least try a password solution, or add two-factor authentication to your email account at the very least? I'd love to hear more about what you thought, what solutions you use, what your concerns are, and everything in between. So as always, email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram @NeilCHughes, and we'll keep this conversation going. And I also cordially invite you to join me again tomorrow. I've got another great guest lined up. So many great guests till the end of the year. In fact, I have 100 guests booked in on the books to speak with you all. How cool is that? So a big thank you for listening as always, and until next time, don't be a stranger.